addiction.
All right, so welcome back to the channel, everyone, and it is now time to talk about the vehicle that I don't think anyone would have ever thought that I would buy. I mean, I didn't even think I was going to buy this vehicle. I'm actually still kind of surprised it's in my shop right now, but it is, and I'm going to tell you the exact reason why and what my plans are for this vehicle. Now, for those that don't know, this is a 2009 Nissan 370Z. And quite honestly, this is a body style, the 350, the 370Z, that I've always thought was a good looking car, but I never knew much about them. I never took the time to do any research on the cars. I knew nothing about the horsepower. You could have told me they were fast, they were slow. I wouldn't have known the difference, quite honestly. And I probably wouldn't have bought this one, but it does have a few upgrades. And well, let me just tell you the story. So back in like May, I think it was, my wife and I hosted a Cars and Coffee here at our property. And one of her co-workers showed up with his GTR. He's got a, I believe it's a 2014 Nissan GTR. A car that I never really paid any attention to. I didn't know a lot about them, but I overheard him talking about it a little bit, and I talked with him a little bit about it, and he mentioned it was like 600 wheel horsepower, and you know, I know they're all-wheel drive, so that kind of got me on a kick, and I started doing some research on the cars and started showing a little bit of an interest. And that interest resurfaced several weeks ago when I started looking more intently and started thinking, you know, I'd really like to have a GTR. But GTRs are very expensive. So for just like even a 2009, 2010, you're going to spend right around $60,000 and up, depending on what you want and how many upgrades you've done or what have you. I actually found a salvage title GTR for sale, and the guy was asking $46,000 for it. I'm always a little leery about salvage titles, but I went on ahead, I hit him up, and just nothing. Radio silence, he didn't hit me back, nothing. So I'm pretty sure the car sold because it's no longer for sale. But I still continued on my quest. Even though I knew I really didn't want to spend the money, I thought, well, maybe I can find a really good deal on one, or maybe I'll find another salvage title one, when I ran across this car. Now let me show you what attracted me to this car. That right there. Yes, that is a Stillen supercharger. So these cars in stock form, they're not like horsepower kings, they're not torque kings certainly. About 338 horsepower is what they're rated at. I think, I want to say like 270 pound-feet of torque. So not a ton. The cars are around 3,300 pounds, 3,200 pounds, something like that. I mean, they're respectable, but they're definitely not gonna blow anybody out of the water, especially by today's numbers. But with the supercharger, now that did intrigue me, and I had to do a little research and what have you. And generally speaking, if you go on the Stillen website, they claim that with this Q37 motor, they'll make somewhere in the range of about 500 crank horsepower, but a lot is lost through the drivetrain. It's about, like, according to my calculations, right around a 25+% drivetrain loss when you do that, because most of these cars with just the can tune and everything like that, somewhere around the 330 to 360 horsepower range, and I would guess that this car is probably right around there. Don't get me wrong, it moves very, very well, but I mean, there's always room for more, and I understand that with just a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of tuning, you can actually get a lot more horsepower out of these cars, and well, yeah, that's kind of the plan actually. As a matter of fact, I just got back from a shop here locally talking to them about some things we can do, and we do have some plans for it. He's getting me some numbers together. If it all adds up and it all makes sense, I'll probably get it down, I'm hoping within the next month or two, and have some stuff done to it and get some more power out of this thing. Now, this thing has never been on a dyno to my knowledge, and I don't know a lot about the specs and how it was tuned and what was done to it because there's no information in the paperwork. All I know is that the guy bought this thing brand new. He took it straight down. He went and got the Stillen supercharger. He got a catback exhaust from Stillen. He also got their bigger disc brake kit, and he did a suspension upgrade from Stillen. So I know he dumped about 20 grand into this car, but there's not even a boost gauge in there. I mean, I have no idea what kind of boost I'm making, really no idea of anything. So all that's gonna change, or at least that's the plan, is to make that change and just to get a little bit more out of this car. Now, don't get me wrong, again, as I said, this car moves very, very well. I'm gonna take you guys for a ride and I'm gonna show you. It's very respectable. Honestly, it's probably, if not the fastest, one of the fastest cars that I own right now. It is very fast. So much so that I actually had to put some Toyo R 888Rs under this thing because the tires that came with it were just spinning. I mean, first and second was pretty much useless. So the car still spins somewhat down low if you take traction control off, but it definitely does a lot better. Now this particular car, it's basically a family-owned car. Older gentleman bought it. Apparently his name was also Mike. He's also retired law enforcement, which is kind of cool. He bought it and he did all these upgrades to it and drove it very, very little. As a matter of fact, this car has right at 20,000 original miles on it right now. So the guy got older, couldn't really drive it anymore. He ended up selling it to his son who didn't drive it at all. And basically the son sold it to me. And you know, to tell you the truth, I went over, I looked at this car, and I wasn't completely sold. I hadn't completely sold myself on the fact that I was gonna be buying a Nissan, because I've never bought a Nissan before. So I get there, he opens the garage, and he peels back the cover. That's, of course, a Nissan 370Z cover, and the car is just immaculate. I mean, I cannot find really any imperfections on this car. It looks like it should be in a showroom. If you told me this was a 2020, I would believe you. It still smells new inside. He takes me for a ride in the car, then he lets me drive it, and you know, I'm the type that I don't really get on it too hard. I don't like to step into it too hard because it's not my car, and I have a great deal of respect for the person that owns the car, so really didn't get to experience what it was like, but I knew that it pulled good and I knew that it ran good. I had brought a certain amount of cash with me, and I told myself I am not gonna go over this amount. I'm not gonna do it, it's not gonna happen. That's why I only brought this certain amount of cash with me. So I basically kind of laid it all on the line for him right there and said, this is what I brought. I'll buy it right now if you'll sell it to me. And he said, no, I'm gonna stick to my price, I'm firm on it. So I went away a little defeated. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna look for maybe a Nismo or something like that. I'll spend less money, I'll get something with a few more miles on it, and I'll just move on. I'll still get a 370Z, but I'll get something different. This car just kept coming back to me the whole drive home. So I got home, I thought about it for a little while, and I texted him, add a little bit to my original offer. It was $1,000 under what he wanted for the car. He thought about it for a few and then said, you know what, I think you're the type of person my dad would like to see the car go to. So lo and behold, it is mine. Like I said, the only thing I've done to the car since I've had it, and I've only had it a little over a week, was to put the tires on it, and I had the windows tinted. And of course the next thing to do is just some performance upgrades and try to get a little bit more power out of it. I don't want to go crazy on this car because I don't want to break anything. I want it to be reliable. I want it to still pass smog, but yeah, I would like to see a little bit more out of it. Why? Because we always want more, that's why. Now, this car is really what I would consider kind of a sleeper car. If you know these cars, you know how they perform, you'll probably be kind of surprised if you come up against it because it's just really all stock. It's set stock wheels and tires and everything like that. The only thing that you might notice is the exhaust tips, which are a little bit bigger, but surprisingly this car is actually pretty quiet, so it still makes it really essentially a sleeper. So I'm gonna start this up for you guys real quick, and then we're gonna take it out, take it for a little spin, and show you what this car is all about. So yeah, fairly quiet, fairly docile, and I like it that way. I think it's kind of cool. I don't want anything too loud and obnoxious, and like I said, I don't plan to do anything different to the exhaust, but do have some performance upgrades we're going to try out. But for now, I'm going to take you guys around, take you for a quick spin in it, show you what it'll do, and then we'll wrap up the video. Real quick before we take it for a drive, you can kind of hear that little like kind of whining. It almost sounds like to me like I would almost say, oh, is your alternator going, or power steering pump, or something like that. But actually that's a supercharger. That's the noise it makes. Very, very different from a Lightning. The way the supercharger is mounted on the intake and the way it whines and everything like that. This one, not nearly as much. It's just kind of that sound. It's very different, but different is cool sometimes, right? So yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm hearing the supercharger right now, and it's got a little bit of a whine, that little bit of noise that you guys heard. I can hear it right now. Probably won't be able to hear it over camera, but it's cool. It's different. It's different than turbos. It's different than, like I said, the superchargers that I've had before. So, and as I mentioned too, this thing has a suspension system I don't even understand. It's got a bunch of different settings. Make it softer, firmer, do the front and the back. It's like I said, a lot of stuff I just don't understand. I haven't messed with it yet. I'll have to do some research on it. Right now we're on a fairly rough road. This is a stiffer riding car for sure, but it's not a bad riding car. I drove it back from Brentwood. Actually Vasco went with me and we drove it back, and we were like averaging 35, 36 miles to the gallon, cruising along very, very nicely. But whenever I wanted to step into it to get around something, I was able to do it very easily. This car is a lot of fun, especially when you start playing with the paddle shifters. Okay, we got a little room here. Let's step into it and see how she does. Not the fastest car I've ever owned. This thing moves though. Moves very, very well. And like I said, I am just guessing based on my previous experiences, maybe around 350 at the rear wheel. I don't know. I've heard you can basically get up to around 500 and not have to really do anything to the stock transmission or bottom end. And I don't want to get in that deeply to it. So I don't know if I'm going to shoot for that or less, but we'll see. Okay, let's see. Okay, I got some clear. I'm going to do paddle shifters here. Just sounds so cool when you're doing that downshift. I think we got to turn around and do that one more time. That was just too much fun. Absolutely too much fun. And we got a clear road right now, so you know, I'm confident we'll never ever go over 55, not once. She flies. Luckily, you got really good brakes too. And then the nice thing, drop it right back into drive. There you go. So does this mean that I am switching over to JDM vehicles? Yeah, probably not. I'm still sticking to my roots, but you know, the bottom line is, if it's cool, it's cool. And truthfully, I did go look at a WRX yesterday. Always a car that kind of intrigued me. Never knew a lot about them. And I've got to say, I was impressed. That all-wheel drive and that turbo spool was pretty impressive. Will it end up in my shop? That remains to be seen. Haven't made a deal yet, but day's not over yet. So, but yeah, this is cool. This is a really cool car. I really like it. For all intents and purposes, it's kind of like my supercar, I guess, my newer supercar, if you will. And I'm really kind of interested to see what a few tweaks on this thing will do to this car. Stay tuned for that. I think it's going to be interesting, and I'm planning to do this build. I'm planning to stick with this car and do this build. Like I said, it's just so clean, so low miles, all the conveniences, fairly comfortable, and it's a lot of fun. As you can see, it's really a lot of fun. Puts a smile on my face. So that being said, I guess I should probably end the video now. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. P.O. Box, Venmo, Instagram, all that good stuff's going to be in the description below. And as always, God bless, take care. Guys, have an absolutely amazing day.